Right then, guys, welcome back into the Spooky Shed, your go-to place for conversations around all things weird, scary, and of course spooky. Today with me, I've got Josh from Weird, Wisconsin. So, Josh, welcome into the shed, mate. How are we?
Oh, I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on.
Good, good, good. Right then, mate. So, I always start by getting my guests to leave something in the shed with me. Now, you said you'd never heard of this term before, so basically, what I mean is, so to me, a shed is either where you keep all your junk or all your important things. So I say to people, it can be anything you want, something you love, something you hate, purely hypothetical, of course. So what have you got for me? I mean, people have left things like guitars, PlayStations, all that sort of stuff in here.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you my lake house Airbnb. You can have it. Just take the whole property. I don't want it anymore. You know,
Fair
I
enough.
had this glamorous idea that owning an Airbnb and renting it out was gonna be like rolling in the money and just a super enjoyable experience, but I hate it so much. I am trying to sell the property with every inch of my body just to get it out of here because it's been the biggest headache in the world. So that would be my advice for people is don't buy an Airbnb thinking it's going to be fun. And I'm leaving it with you in the shed.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll take it. I'll take it.
I know it's
Right
not
then, yeah.
spooky. It's not,
It doesn't need to be. I mean, for God's sake, the weirdest thing, what the weirdest one yet is someone said a butt plug. So I mean,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
just been top of
Yeah,
mind for me recently. I'm like, if I could just get rid of that emotional waste of my life right now, that would be great.
yeah.
So I'm leaving it with you.
Happy days, happy days. Right then, so talk to me and tell my listeners about Weird Wisconsin. When you started, what you do, everything.
Sure. Yeah. So, it really goes back to when I was a kid.
Mm,
I grew up in Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is about 30 minutes from Milwaukee, if anybody is familiar with Wisconsin. And I had unexplainable childhood um, paranormal experiences. Now, I didn't know what these things were, right? And this was the 90s, so you didn't have the ghost shows. There was no books. Obviously, there wasn't social media. So I started doing research about what ghosts and the paranormal and all that stuff is. And that kind of just led me on this lifelong journey of wanting to further understand, document, and explore anything that's spooky, weird, different.
mm.
Um, and you fast forward to 2020, we were in the pandemic, right? And I had a very bizarre experience in a local park, and I started doing research, and I stumbled upon American Ghost Walks, which is a tour guide company. They do ghost walks throughout the entire state of Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, all over the world. They're doing ghost walks, and they needed a tour guide in Waukesha. So I signed on to do that. I've been doing that for 6 seasons now. I give like a 2 hour walking tour through downtown Waukesha, my hometown, just talking about all the weird true crime, ghostly, alien things that have happened in Waukesha's history. And then that kind of led me to want to expand upon the tour. So I started telling or creating social media videos about the the stories that happen in Waukesha. And my wife was like, what if you run out of stories in Waukesha to tell? And I'm like, that's not going to happen. There's so many weird things that have happened in Waukesha. And lo and behold, like many things, she was right. And just here in 2026, I kind of rebranded as Weird Wisconsin. So taking uh, my stories from Waukesha, but doing stuff from all across the state. And it's not just paranormal stuff anymore. Um, it's telling stories about UFOs or the hodag, which is a folklore creature. Telling real
Mm.
like exorcisms that happened in Wisconsin. And also just like weird things you didn't know about Wisconsin. And it's not always like just weird, bizarre, but just like forgotten history through time. And so I rebranded as Weird Wisconsin January 1 of this year. And my account just blew up around St. Patrick's Day because I told a really fascinating story about a church here in Wisconsin that has connections back to the Rock of Cashel in Ireland. And that story just clicked at the right time and just blew up my account. And I've got like close to 50,000 followers across all my channels now. So
Nice.
um, I didn't like do it to be making money or to have like international followers, but it connected me to you, which is great. and many other people just across the country who are like, wow, I didn't know that happened in Wisconsin, let alone in the history of the world, right? So
Yeah.
I know that's like the super long response, but Weird Wisconsin is bizarre stuff in the States, and it's going great.
Good, good, good. No, I like it. It's cool, and it's like I said, doing stuff like this, like it's like I mean, I don't make any money from doing this, and I mean, if I could, then cool. But even if I never make a penny from this, I'm still going to carry on doing it because to me,
Right.
it's just cool to like learn stuff and just talk to people about all the weird
I
things that have
know.
happened to people.
Yeah, and it wasn't like my goal was to be making money off of social media, but
Mm.
one day Facebook just sent me a notification. They said, "Hey, you're monetized. You will now start making money off of your product." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know that was a possibility at my level."
Mm.
And it's not anything much, but it helps fund doing additional things. So if I want to travel for a weekend, I have a little bit of money set aside from like Facebook that's paying me so I can go do that, you know? So it's I would definitely be doing all of this regardless of any of that, but it's definitely a nice perk I didn't expect. And I just love talking about it because it's really fascinating how social media is changing the way just people interact with the stuff that we create.
Mm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So before we jump into like some of your personal things, then, so
Mhm.
the ghost walks. What are some of like the some of the highlights of them? Then what are the weirder things on the ghost
Yeah,
walk?
so Waukesha is relatively a small city by like by Milwaukee or Madison in Wisconsin. It's smaller, but there's a lot of just weird things that have happened in the. I think it was created in about 1834 is when the first white settlers came here. So it's not that old, right?
No.
In the grand scheme of things. Um, but there was a string of events that took place in the early 1900s that really kind of defines the whole tour. Most of the stories I tell are between like 1870 and 1930, I would say. After that, it's been relatively quiet, other than a few recent events. But I would say one of the more bizarre ones is this little boy that was found dead in a local quarry here in 1920. And to this day, we still have no idea who he is. And if you go up to the cemetery where he's buried, it just says unknown boy found in quarry with the exact date that he was found. Now, there were a lot of leads to figure out who his parents were, who killed him, who disposed of his body in the quarry. But most of them, they weren't able to, charge or find evidence to put on these people. And so when they found the boy, they actually put his body up in a local funeral home window and invited the public to come by, take a look, see if you know who he is. So really, really different times back then,
Yeah.
obviously, to try to crack this case. And then after a week, a local woman raised money, gave him a suit and a coffin, and paid for the headstone and buried him up in the cemetery. Back then they didn't even take a photograph. All we have is a little sketch to identify this boy. And they used psychics to try to figure out who his parents were or who killed him. The most promising lead on this story came in the 1950s when a local man in Milwaukee lost another son and another wife uh, under very bizarre, similar circumstances. Basically, he said the one son that he lost was adopted by cousins from Chicago, and all three of them moved down to Argentina and died in a car accident, which
Right.
is not believable in the least bit. And then when his wife went missing, he said that she wanted to move out to California with family, and nobody ever saw her again. And so when they started questioning this dude and trying to piece everything together, it seems like most likely he was the father of this boy they found in Waukesha, but they didn't have any evidence, so they couldn't pin it on him. And there's been a lot of renewed interest to possibly exhume the remains of the boy and do proper DNA testing. And people just are like, why don't we do that? Why can't we do that? I'm like, well, it's not as simple as just digging him up, right? It costs a
Yeah.
lot of money to do that DNA testing. And even if like I raised enough money to pay for that, the city just doesn't want to do it. And I
Yeah.
understand with good reasoning. Like you don't want to, dig up this story and maybe disturb some ancestors that are living today.
Mm.
Obviously, they have nothing to do with it. So I'm like, as much as I want to figure out who this kid is, it's better to just let the dead rest, I think, because you would just open up a whole new can of worms by identifying him, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It's funny you say that because I often think now like how the police solved any sort of murders, like you say, back in them sort of days, because now it just seems that every single murder is solved by like some sort of DNA or something, and I'm just like,
Right.
I mean, I almost like police now are shit compared to what they were back then because now they can't seem to do anything without a DNA now.
Right, right. And there was an infant found in a sewer drain in Waukesha, I think in the 60s or 70s,
Mm,
and they actually exhumed her body a couple years ago to try to do
mm,
the same thing, and they didn't have any luck. So
yeah,
I think after they've done it once, they've just, in going back to 1920 to try to figure that out, I don't think it's going to be possible.
no, no,
So, and I think there's a lot of interest in that story because of it being like an 8-year-old boy.
yeah,
And no matter who you are, if you have children or you don't, or you're a grandparent, or you have friends with kids, everyone can just connect with the innocence of a little boy simply being disposed of in a quarry. It's very sad, but also it's just very intriguing to learn more about it and educate people. So I think it's kind of like the perfect thing. And, there's no ghost story to it.
mm.
I've done a few investigations at the gravestone near the quarry to try to see if anything comes through. Haven't had any luck, but every year we a friend and I and my daughter we take flowers over to the grave at the anniversary just to kind of make sure that people are remembering this story because that's the most important thing is to keep telling the story and remember it.
Oh, nice, yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, just see, you've brought the mood back up a little bit there, so I'll bring it back down and tell you about. So there's a woodland area about it's probably 200, 300 yards from my house.
Yeah.
Me and my old co-host we done an investigation there once. It's a very small woodland area. It's probably about 8 acres, and real there's a lot of considering how small it is. There's a lot of horrific stuff has happened in there, and the worst one. Pretty sure it was 2003. A group of teenagers found a dead baby in a bin bag. So, I'm pretty sure I could be wrong because I've not looked into it for a while and I can't really remember because I didn't really want to look into it too much because it's very
Right.
grim. But I'm pretty sure that like nobody, like no parent was ever identified for that baby. So that's horrific. And like I said, that was in the early 2000s. So, I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
1920s, you've got no luck.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
And much more recent. I don't know. It makes it like hit harder, I guess,
Yeah,
when it's more
definitely.
recent. Like when it's so far ago,
Mm.
there's nobody alive anymore that was around when that was told, so
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like heartless to say it doesn't feel as real, but it like when things happen so long ago, it's hard to have that, like, emotional connection to it sometimes.
Yeah, and I suppose as well in like that situation, and like you say, if he's found in a quarry, I suppose that could very well have easily been some sort of accident. Like he could have been down there playing or something and fell. I don't know, but like you said, when it's a baby and it's in a bin bag, it's clearly been
Right.
discarded
Yeah.
to put it in the best way possible.
The one
So,
detail I forgot to mention was, they thought that the boy might have drowned on accident, but
mm,
when they pulled the body out, they actually discovered the back of his head was bashed in with something. So,
oh
he had been
well,
murdered and then
yeah,
thrown in the quarry like garbage. So,
yeah.
that's what
There
makes
goes
it
my
an
theory.
yeah, no, 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 it was purely intentional, and but that's one of the ones that when I first started doing the tour,
Mm,
I just really connected with that story, and a lot of people really find it fascinating because all those places where this happened are still around, and
yeah.
you can physically go see the gravestone, and people leave like little toys and trinkets on there. So that's one of the ones that I really enjoy telling and trying to further investigate. There's a really good one about a family of German immigrants that came here in the 1840s. So big German family, built a big farm, had a very great prosperous life, and then kind of out of the blue, the mother gets ill, and they get the doctor over to the house, rural farmland, and he actually gave her an overdose of morphine on accident, and she died that night. And over the next 30 years, there was more than a dozen deaths that took place on this property. And so what they say is that the curse of that farm was born on that day when the mother died.
Yeah.
You fast forward like 20 years, the youngest son gets gorged to death by a bull. It literally like
Nice.
drove its horn into his stomach and ripped out his innards. And then 3 years later, the two oldest siblings murdered a neighbor boy, a farmhand. They killed all their farm animals, their dog, and then went upstairs in their bedrooms and killed themselves.
Fucking
And
hell.
that's like the most. I'm summing this up in like 30 seconds, but um, the whole story goes is that this was in 1917, so they believe that this German family was German sympathizers during World War One.
Mm.
The police believed that they had been caught. Somebody was trying to blackmail them, and so they said, "Screw it, we're going out with a bang," and they murdered anybody that was there, and uh, and that was basically the end of the family that originally owned the property. But the deaths keep happening on the property. In the 1930s, there was a couple that had two infants die under the age of one. There was a man who was fishing near the river and fell in and drowned. And then another man was trying to dynamite a boulder in the farm field and blew himself up. So,
Jesus.
even more deaths taking place on this land. Even up until the 1960s, there was a woman who owned the property and lost a son. He was swimming in a nearby lake and he died. And then her youngest son, who was, I think, 4 at the time, was in the barn playing and fell into an auger and was crushed to death. That was the last and probably the most tragic death on the property. And ever since then, there's been no more deaths, thankfully. Um, but people have constantly seen ghosts in the
Mm.
farmland, in the barn, in the house. Very, very old, 1840 classic Wisconsin farmhouse. And I've talked to a handful of people that have lived there or worked there, and they're like, "Yeah, we see shadow figures and hear things and smell things all the time on that property that shouldn't be there." And I've had a lot of interest in why is this land cursed. And if you kind of look back at Wisconsin's history, almost everything around us was Native American land, right? And there's belief that maybe some remains were disturbed that kind of
Mm.
cursed the property, or if a local tribe put some sort of curse on the land. I haven't gone too far with those theories because you can't exactly prove any of it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of interest into that and as to why this land in this area has seen so much tragedy over the years.
Mm. So, do you have any sort of like belief on that? Then do you think they could be cursed, or do you think that's just, or do you just think it's really really bizarre and unfortunate coincidence?
I mean, I definitely believe it's cursed. There is no way this amount of bizarre things happen in one house and there's not
Mm.
something wrong or tied to the land. I
Yeah.
mean, it's going back basically when that first family built that house, their entire family died on that property almost.
Mm.
They had like 7 or 8 kids. Only one of them would go on to get married and have children of their own. Um, Two of the other sons that you don't really find much about in the history books, they were Civil War veterans and came back from war, and they didn't leave their bedrooms until they died. So, I mean, that could be like some post-war stress going on.
Yeah.
But the fact that none of them ever got married or had kids, and the most frustrating part is that not a single damn photograph exists of any of them. I don't know what any of these
That's
people look
weird.
like, and that's the most frustrating part. Is
Mm.
I did like a 45-minute not lecture, but presentation on this story at a Paracon. And everyone's like, "Well, what do they look like? What's the family look like?" I'm like, "That's my biggest frustration is there's no photos."
Mm.
And when the original father that built the farm died, there was a nice obituary about him in the local paper because he was a Waukesha pioneer, but not a photo. I'm like, why was there never a photograph taken? And I know it's a rural farmland, and a lot of their belongings probably just got disposed of when they died. But it's just weird that there would never be a photograph taken.
That's bizarre. That like you'd almost assume that they'd have like a family photo or something at least within the house.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And
That is that is
you
bizarre.
probably sense my frustration because I want to see what these people looked like. I even found the great great granddaughter of the original family. I used to work with her, so I said, "Hey, did you ever hear about this story?" And she said that people in her family would talk about it during the holidays.
Mm.
And she's like, "No, there was never any photographs of them." So I've I've followed a lot of leads on this. I've a lot of dead ends, but it's got to be one of my more favorite stories. Hence why I did a 45-minute presentation about it. But it's just so bizarre because it's got the suicides, the murders. You got World War I. You've got a ghost story tied to it. Um, it's just there's so many fascinating elements to it.
Yeah, that is really bizarre. And like you say, all the stuff to come afterwards as well. Like I've over the years of doing this podcast, I've stopped believing in coincidences. I think some things
Right.
just I don't know. I think so. There's just connections somewhere to everything. I don't
Yes.
think there is coincidence anymore. I don't believe in them.
No. And I mean, I've done another lecture about is coincidence real or not? And
Mm.
there's just too many bizarre things that happen in life for things to be coincidence. It all
Yeah,
connects, it all ties together. Everything happens for a reason. And I know that's such a blanket statement, but no, everything literally does happen because of other decisions and choices. And we could go on a whole 2-hour podcast talking about that, but
yeah, exactly.
there's
Was
what is
it's
going
like you
on back
say,
there?
even just like the smallest thing, like a really random example, like could be I could be sat at home thinking, oh, I really want, I don't know, chocolate ice cream. And then my wife walks through the door with chocolate ice cream. Like, even like people would say that's coincidence, but I'd be like, no, there's a reason that, like, somehow I managed to tell her through my head that I wanted chocolate ice cream and she bought some.
Yeah, I've
Like,
been
just
that way
small
with
things like that.
I've been really into the past year angel numbers. I don't know if you've heard of that or
No.
experienced that a lot yourself, but a lot has happened in the past 2 years in my life. There's been a lot of things going on, good and bad, but I just started seeing repetition in numbers in my daily life. And the past couple months, it's been 222. So,
Right.
like, I'll look at a social video and it'll have 222 views, or I'll wake up abruptly at 2:22 a.m., or I'll be passing a street and the house will be 222. It's like I've been seeing these repetitive numbers that are supposedly angel numbers giving you guidance in your life. So
Just to interrupt you, because what's really weird is we've been doing this for 22 minutes and it's 22 minutes past the hour.
see,
That's weird.
there's something to it,
That
and
is weird.
it started with fours. It was a lot of fours, 444, and now it's been twos. So it's like it's just like nice, when I'm having like doubts in my career or doubts with personal matters, and then I'll just like look at the clock and it'll be 2:22. I'm like, what are the odds? So just like
Yeah.
on this whole thing of coincidence or not, I'm like, no, coincidence does not exist at all ever.
Yeah, that's it. That is definitely bizarre. Right then. So when it comes to like the paranormal, ghosts, aliens, all the weird stuff, where did your interest in that start? Did that start when you were a kid, or was it when you got a bit older?
When I was a kid, again, it was because I was having experiences.
Mm.
So I was seeing shadow people in my house, something I couldn't explain, didn't know what it was. And a lot of friends at my age would talk about ghosts in their house. And I didn't really understand fully what we were discussing. But like my friend would say he saw an old woman in their home. And another friend said there was cold spots and things would move by themselves. And I grew up in a very old part of the city. So these are all older homes with histories. And it didn't really click until I got older when the TV shows started coming out and social media started becoming a thing that, oh, I was experiencing a ghost when I was a kid. My friends had ghosts in their houses. We weren't just kids with active imaginations.
Mm.
And so it was kind of like I was after it for the thrill seeking. Like it was like I want to experience a ghost. This is going to be the coolest thing ever. I'm going to be like Peter Venkman on the Ghostbusters. Like this is the cool thing to do for me. So I will admit, like when I was younger, it was more for like just the thrill seeking. And then, as I got more mature and got older, I realized this is kind of like a really cool way to like step back in time, to like time travel in a way, because
Yeah.
you get to like talk, see, experience somebody that's been dead for 60 years or older. So uh, it kind of shifted from solely just wanting to experience a ghost to wanting to really understand and further explain what's happening. So I've done a lot of deep dives into theories and understanding the stories and the spirits that still remain in these places. Kind of like stone tape theory. I'm not sure if you've heard of that at all, but
No.
I've gone on a deep dive on stone tape theory the past couple years to understand why hauntings are occurring, and especially in like older places, like your part of the world, why these
Yeah.
spirits remain for thousands of years, right? Like over here, like if a house is 100 years old, it's like okay, that's old. But when you've got castles that are in ruins that are from 1150, it's like why are those sorts of places still haunted? And that's really where stone tape theory is kind of more applicable because it really explains when you don't have windows or a roof or people living in these places anymore, why the spirits and the energy still remains.
Mm.
So I don't know, super long-winded question to my focus in all this, but it really has evolved as I've changed as a person and gotten older, and as your life changes, I think your interest and um, your approach to this field that we're in definitely changes with you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember as a kid, like one of the reasons I was because mine's a bit of a weird story. So I used to be really into it when I was a kid, and then I sort of lost interest in it, and became very skeptical, and then really got back into it. But like now in a very different ways. When I was a kid, it was like for almost morbid reasons. I just feel like, oh, how cool would it be to talk to a dead person, sort of thing. Whereas now it's like, yes, it would be cool, but like to like actually hear their story, not just because they're dead.
Right, and that's why people who just want to experience a ghost and like don't really do research,
Mm,
I'm like, sure, that's fine for you, but that's not my reasoning for doing this anymore. So when
yeah.
people ask me if I get scared when I'm doing an investigation, I'm like, well, not really in the traditional sense, because I know the spirit that I'm trying to talk to. I know how long they lived there, what their life was like. I've seen photographs most of the times of them. So I it's almost like you're just like meeting somebody for the first time when you're investigating a place that you've done thorough research on. I don't like just going into a house and saying, "Who's here? What's your name? When did you die? Are you man or woman?" No, it's like, "I know your name's Robert. I know when you died. So I know what year you think it is still, and I know your history." Right? So it's like
Mm.
you're just connecting on a deeper level, potentially with these spirits versus just going in blind, hoping that something happens.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, it's true. Yeah, 'cause I mean, I've done sort of like both sides. I've gone to places where we've known the history and sort of like
Yeah.
who you're trying to contact, and then places where we don't know as much history, so you're not sure who you're going to contact. So I've experienced from both sides, and I don't know which I prefer. Like you say, when you know the history and you know you're trying to contact, that's good because like then if you get what you're expecting to get, then it's a real confirmation. But whereas when you don't, you can I don't know you can maybe still sort of question it a bit yourself. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it just becomes a little overwhelming. Like
Mm,
I see why people like to go to those giant asylums like
yeah.
Penhurst in those places, but that's never been my thing. And I don't know if it's because it's so big it'd be overwhelming. There's just like too
Mm,
much to cover and investigate or explore. I also don't like to pay to investigate. I don't like to have to pay a fee to go talk to a ghost potentially. So I'm
yeah.
not sure what it is, but I think it comes down to I just want to know more when I'm going into this, and
Mm,
uh, But that's also kind of why I focus on Wisconsin because it's like I've got like a niche and I know these places for the most part. So it becomes a little easier. And I really just like having the focus of like, this is my ground. I know this territory very well. And, and that's kind of been, again, with the focus of being the tour guide in Waukesha and doing Weird Wisconsin is just becoming a local expert on the topics, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, because I've always wondered what it'd be like you say, to do an investigation in one of those big places, like you say, like obviously over there you have the famous asylums and stuff. I've always wondered why like we don't really have them here, but then I suppose the majority of the old asylums that were asylums are just genuine hospitals now. I think so. You said we don't really have them here, but I still think I'd like to go to them just to almost just to say that I have been to them and actually get the experience and see what it would be like.
Yeah. Yeah. The closest thing I did to that was, um, it's a winery now, but it's down in Missouri.
Mm,
The Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, Destination Fear, they've all covered it. But it's a winery now. It used to be an Oddfellows home and a military hospital. So it's a
mm,
big, complex type structure with many buildings in a kind of rundown state, at least the buildings that they don't use. And we were there kind of doing it like, who are you? What are you? What year is it? All those questions. And this one thing communicated to us that it was a demon or something that just doesn't have a good intention. And that's where it kind of like clicked off for me of like, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be interacting with something that identifies as that or is maybe trying to scare us away by saying that. So that's why I think it's almost like unsafe to go into places that you don't know what you're dealing with. Like if you do know that you're going to be interacting with something evil like a demon, fine, you can prepare yourself for that spiritually, but
mm.
um to hear that without expecting it, it just made it feel dangerous for me.
Yeah, yeah, I can see what you mean. Definitely. Um, I've always wondered like this might sound odd to you, but I've asked a few people this, and I always wonder if there's like in the afterlife and when like say if you become a ghost, like is the rules to it because like I have a lot of experiences in my house that I've been told and I feel as like my granddad, and then like I know like my parents and my grandparents and stuff have had experiences what they say is my granddad and stuff. But then there also seems to be places where ghosts, spirits seem to be trapped in certain places. So I'd love, I mean, like it's one of the things that we can't really answer, but I'd love to know a reason for that.
And I don't know if the rules, I've always like thought maybe it's somewhat like Beetlejuice. I mean, I'm sure most people who are listening have seen Beetlejuice and kind of how
Mm,
time works in that movie. And that's
yeah.
the best way to approach it for me is because I do live in a house where we have experienced a spirit that we know has been here since she passed away in the 40s. But the weird thing is that she comes around like every couple of years.
Mm,
So we lived here for 3 or 4 years, nothing happened, and then it was like a light switch turned on, and there was nonstop activity for a couple of months. But then it goes dormant for years at a time. So that's where it's so complex to start to like think about how the rules work on the other side because there almost seems like no rhyme or reason, specifically in my situation, to when this spirit is interacting with us. It does seem to pick up around the holidays, like Christmas lights will turn on by themselves and those sorts of things. And also, we just did a renovation in this kitchen I'm in, and the first couple days of um, demolition, I would come home and there would be a light turned on in a part of the house where nobody should have been. So
mm.
at first, I thought like maybe the workers had turned on the hallway light, but then a bedroom light was on upstairs when I know I turned it off that morning. So I definitely think, like, typically when you're doing renovations, spirits come out. That's what a lot of people say, and that's when she came out. She comes out during the holidays, but then there'll be 8, 9 months or up to a year or two where nothing happens. So I have no answer for what the rules are, but it just seems like time and space work so differently on the other side that we'll never be able to understand or explain it. It's one of those things everyone wants to know the answer to, just like what happens when you die, but
Mm.
We'll never know. And the best thing we have is Beetlejuice to compare it to.
Yeah, it's a good comparison actually. I never thought about it like that, but it is a good comparison. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of my point. It's almost it's like th- there is no rules. It seems to be that, like you say. I mean, some can travel, some seem to not be able to travel. It just I don't know. Maybe it's luck of the draw. Maybe it's I don't know where you are in a mental state when you pass over, or where you are, or I don't know. I mean, I suppose the beauty of it is we're all going to find out one day.
Right. And then it's just going to be like, now I wish I could go back and tell somebody on their podcast what the rules are now that I know them. Um, but it doesn't, it seems like if there was rules or a system of how travel works on the other side, why can't all of our ancestors come visit us when they want to?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
Mm,
or do like some spirits have more power or energy than others, or
mm.
are more people open or able to experience the paranormal versus other people? I don't really know, and I don't know if it changes with age. Like, are you more open or energized to do it when you're younger? Like just
I definitely believe in that. I know I know you've got obviously your little one there with you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how old she is, but my son, he's nearly 2, and he's
yeah,
done some he's done some things that I can't explain, and definitely seen things that I can't explain, or that I can't see. But I know myself, up until I was about 5 years old, I used to sit in my bedroom and talk to people that weren't there, and then almost had it confirmed to who it was. So I had a medium on the podcast, and they said she was over on your side of the world, so literally halfway across the world from me. I'd only
yeah,
ever spoke to her via Instagram before, so didn't have any personal accounts or anything. And when we were talking, she randomly asked me if I remembered talking to someone called Charlie, and I was like, no, I don't know anybody called that. And then she told me to ask my mum, because my mum is also a medium, so I asked her, and then it turned out that my mum's spirit guide is called Charlie. My dad's granddad and uncle were called Charlie. So I'm like, again, that can't be a coincidence.
right, right, yeah, and yeah. So my daughter's a little older than your son,
Mm.
but just this morning she was hiding behind me. There's stools. She was hiding behind it. So what are you doing? I just thought she was pooping, but she she said, "I'm hiding from the monster." And I said, "Where is the monster?" And she said, "Living room." And we have like a front part of our house that's like the formal like sitting room, if you want to call it. It's the old part of the house, but
Yeah.
she says front room. And I'm like, "What does the monster look like?" And she said, "Elsa from Frozen." And she said, "Old Elsa pink." I'm like, "Oh, well, come show me. Where is the monster? What is it doing?" And she said it was standing by our record player, but now it's gone. And I'm like, is that an imagination?
Mm.
Or did she actually see something and she was hiding from it? And I've, from a very young age, I've been trying to teach her, like, you can't be afraid of these things. If you are seeing something, tell me, because then I can help validate if I know what you're seeing is something, a spirit's like a family member or the ghost that's been in our house. So
Mm.
I've tried to teach her these things aren't scary. They're not monsters. Talk to them, interact with them. You know, I'm a little envious that she's seeing these things, but there's been multiple occasions where she's seen an older woman that she's communicated to us. So um, it's interesting. It's never been scary, but it's just been like there's somebody there. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and like I say, I mean, once my son's like actually having full on conversational and stuff, and if he starts talking to people, then I'm going to be asking him more questions than he's going to be asking
right?
me. I think.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun, and that's
Mm.
I've already again, she's experienced a few things already, so I'm excited to see, like, as she gets older, like, what she's seeing, because that would be the ultimate
Mm.
validation of, like,
Yeah.
we know the stories from before she was born, and now if she's experiencing them without
Mm.
knowing what those stories are,
Yeah.
it's that's the gold mine right there, right?
Mm. And of course, if she like continues to do, because again, speaking of rules in quotations, there, as a rule, typically from all the people I've spoken to, it's usually around 5 or 6 when it stops, and that was the same for me. That was the same for me. And I have I have a weird little theory behind this. So I don't. I've said this to somebody before, and annoyingly, I still haven't looked at the film, and I can't remember what it is. But I'm pretty. It was out in the 90s, and it was like babies that could talk to each other telepathically, and then once they get to a certain age, they cross over. So then that's why like babies don't remember stuff. And I'm thinking maybe when you get to like 5 or 6, you like something switches in your brain. So like say then that, you can't do that anymore.
I think that was Baby Geniuses.
Yes, that
That's
was
I
it.
know that's the movie.
Because I
Um,
kept thinking it was that Look Who's Talking Now, but I was like, no, it definitely isn't now.
we're also a big fan of that movie, but yeah, I think it was
Mm,
Baby Geniuses. I don't know if it was very good, but I think they say that kids experience it because they aren't told that it's not real yet.
mm, yeah.
So they just think it's real, and it's when you become around 7, 10 years old, ghosts aren't real, ghosts are made up, ghosts are fake.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody something, they're gonna okay, well then they're not open to that experience. It's the
Mm,
same thing with if you teach your kid that spiders are scary, they're gonna be afraid of them. But
yeah.
if you encourage them to interact with snakes and things that typically make people afraid, then they're not gonna be afraid. So I've learned so much raising a child that it like helped me open up as well, emotionally and all those things too. So this is an advocate for having kids. Everybody, if you're afraid of it, just do it. It's mind opening. It's not as exhausting as they make it seem either.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but we got a really good sleeper. So we have to wake her up every morning. So we've been blessed with a kid that loves to sleep.
Yes, you have.
I don't like to rub it in people's faces too much, but yeah, we have been blessed.
He has days where he'll sleep for 12, 13 hours, and then he'll have days where he'll sleep for 3.
Oh
So,
my goodness. I don't know
yeah,
what I do.
yeah. Luckily, I'm sort of the same, so I can deal with it, me. So
Okay.
I don't mind it too much, but I
Right.
prefer he slept a lot more. Well, yeah. So just before we finish, then, so I often like to ask people this, and I'll be interested, like say the way you've spoke, what your answer will be. What would you say the scariest experience is, or the creepiest, or the most unexplainable experience that you've had is?
That's a good question. And it's like I always go back to the same one. Um because I think it is the most prominent in my paranormal investigation history. I had the stuff when I was a kid, fine. Um I've had stuff as an adult, but I've been a bit more, I would say, understanding of what it is. However, in college, I was, I think, 20 years old. We started a paranormal research group at the university I went to.
Mm,
And our first ever investigation with like cameras and like the ghost toys at incredibly haunted location that used to be an antique store. We go there, we're setting up, we got all our stuff, and it's like, okay, it's time to investigate, right? And within the next 3 hours, everything you could imagine happened to us. We were touched. We were seeing full apparitions. We were hearing footsteps. All of the gadgets that we had were giving us results.
mm,
The ghost radar on my phone was giving us intelligent answers. So we had a ghost box that literally I turned it on and it said hello to me. And that wasn't like a feature. It actually something communicated hello. And I'm on one part of the building and my friend is in the other. And she's like, hey, you need to come over here right now. This thing just said my name. And she had a very unique name. And I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. And I slammed my fist on the table in frustration. And I said, what is the name of this device we're using? And it was a ghost box. So it
mm,
was actively scanning through radio stations. And it stops as if it was like turned off. And it just said Frank, which back then in 2010, they used to be called Frank's box. I
mm,
forgot why they called them that, but we used to call it a Frank's box before it was renamed a Ghost box. But it said Frank, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, wait, are we allowed to swear?
yeah, yeah,
Are
yeah.
we allowed to swear? I was like, it was just like, I can't believe that just happened. And then About 2 hours later, we're in this basement where supposedly the body of a little girl is buried under cement. And I'm like, let's turn off all our flashlights. Each of us are about 6 feet apart. And I'm like, let's turn the flashlights off, see what happens. So the room is pitch black, and I feel this hand squeeze my shoulder and then run down to my thigh. And there isn't somebody within arm's distance of me. And you would have heard somebody walk up, walk over, and touch you.
Mm,
And I literally dove underneath the table because I haven't been touched like that since by a spirit.
mm,
I asked, so we had mentors there with us, an older couple who were at a local ghost group. And I said, is this normal? And they said, at this spot, yes, but what you experienced tonight was like a whole nother level. And I don't know if it was because you have a bunch of super excited 20-year-olds with a lot of emotion into this investigation. Maybe they just knew it was our first time and wanted to really make it special for us. But I had been back to that location a second time. We had nearly the same results, not as electric, but it was still very impactful. And then I went back probably 10 years after that. It's no longer an antique store. It was being renovated into apartments and like a mutual co-working space. And it
mm.
was like a dead cell. Nothing happened. I wasn't afraid to be alone. I freely walked the building by myself in the dark. Not a single damn thing happened. So I think the reason this building, with its storied history of murders and suicides and gangsters and all this stuff over 150 years, I think the antique store, all the belongings that were in there kind of amped up the activity times 100. Because once you took all those old antiques out of there, again, it was like a dead cell. It was ridiculous, the night and day difference between an antique store when I was younger and then being renovated when I was in my 30s. And they always say that antique stores do kind of possess that level of energy and paranormal activity because you have a lot of old items that somebody could have owned their entire life. They
Mhm.
pass away, and perhaps they're still attached to that object. So you potentially have, a couple dozen or hundreds of, at least pieces of these spirits attached to these items in these antique stores. So I'm another big advocate for investigating antique stores because you're always going to experience something, and all those feelings and those vibes that you have from those places. I don't think it's random. I think it's because there is that much spiritual energy around still.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I completely agree. I completely agree with you there. Um, flip that around. So my friend, she's just opened up a haunted museum. So, and the building it's in, it was like it's an old insurance building or something. So, I mean, not a lot of history to it that they know of. And since they've only been open 2 weeks, I think, and they've had people in doing investigations and stuff. And I went to the grand opening of it, and weird stuff was happening then, like say cupboard doors opening for no reason, all sorts whilst we were there. And like I say, I definitely think like things, spirits, energy does attach itself to certain objects, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And that
Some of
was
them I
one
don't
thing.
understand, like why someone has a haunted egg timer or something like that. But
The people we were with, they said if anything happens around an object, buy it. No matter what it is, just buy it. And I think so at the end of the night, we were terrified. Like I'm still getting goosebumps thinking about it, but the eight of us, 20-year-old college kids were so scared. We slept in a row. There was like shelves of objects, and we all slept together in one row like little burritos. Like we were all wrapped up in our blankets next to each other. It was the funniest picture. Uh, but as we were falling asleep, like a juice pitcher falls over, and I was like, God, I don't want a haunted juice pitcher, but somebody did buy it, and they said that they were experiencing things, and so much in their dorm in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that they threw it away because they were like, I don't want this anymore. I don't know why I bought it to begin with, but I'm getting rid of it, and the activity stopped. But man, we were a bunch of little babies at that antique store, but it was because it was so intense. Like
yeah,
we had a reporter there with us who after like a half hour, ran out of the building and went home. And I had to call him and be like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "I just saw an 8 foot tall shadow step into a doorway." He's like, "I didn't sign up for this. I'm leaving." I'm like, "You were doing a story about a haunted location with ghost hunters." He's like, "Yeah, I didn't think anything would actually happen though." And then he sees something that, most of us would love to see. And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I went in there not expecting or not even believing in ghosts." And he's like, I fully believe 100%." So it really is a shame that that building changed so much, but I'm glad I
Mm,
got to experience it when I did.
yeah, I bet. I bet. Right then, Josh. So I've really enjoyed speaking to you. So thank you for your time. So before we finish, do you just want to let my listeners know where they can find you and all the socials and everything platforms that you're on?
Yeah, I think if you just search Weird Wisconsin on all of them, except for X, X is too much to keep up with, but TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Weird Wisconsin, you'll see my face, you'll see my stories. Follow me, send messages, whatever. I'm very active, and I like to communicate with everybody just because that's where I get like, the majority of my um, like local stories is from
Yeah.
people who are like, "Have you heard of this? Have you heard of that?" So I'm like, sometimes yes, sometimes absolutely not. But yes, I want to, do a video or do a post about this because there's a lot. And social media, it's allowing us to reconnect with those stories that people are still telling. So hit me up, send me stuff. Would love to hear from you.
Nice, nice. I like it. Right then, guys. So we shall leave it for there for this one. So as always, go and follow the Instagram page at the Spooky Shed Podcast. Link in the bio there for the all the other socials, YouTube channels, merch store, and all that good stuff. And we shall speak to you next time.
The Spooky Shed podcast is a Pod Shed production.